Hi all, this is Akshara Menon from PMS Bazaar, welcoming you all to the webinar on the topic Journey from a Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur. With no delay, let me introduce the guest of the day, Mr. Nitin Jain. Nitin, recognized as Global Indian of the Year 2020-21, brings nearly 2 decades of experience as a CEO in wealth management, asset management, and capital markets. His leadership at Edelweiss Group oversaw the management of over USD 40 million in client assets. In 2020-21, he founded Neo Wealth and Asset Management, focusing on trust and transparency. Under his guidance, Neo emerges one of the India's largest growing investment firms with USD 3 million in assets under advisory and USD 500 million in assets under management, securing USD 35 million equity investment from Peak 15 partners. Named one of the India's top 50 digital finance influencers in 2024, Nitin is also recognized by CEO Insights India as one of the top 10 leaders from IIT Kharagpur. Nitin holds a B.Tech from IIT Kharagpur and a postgraduate degree in management at IIM Calcutta, shaping both strategy and talent. Moving on to the moderator of the day, a very familiar face, Mr. Vikaas and Sachdeva. He's an industry stalwart with over 3 decades of experience in asset management business. He currently the managing director of Sundaram Alternates, driving growth across different platforms, geographies, and asset classes. The next moderator of the day, Mr. Hitungshu Debnath. He is a financial services professional with over 3 decades of experience across mutual funds, alternative assets, wealth management, fintech, TPD, and broking. He is currently the Chief Business Officer at Sundaram Alternative Assets Limited. So over to you, Vikas.
Thank you, Akshara. Thank you, team PMS Bazaar, and a very warm welcome to Nitin. Nitin, incidentally, I must also tell you that this is the grand finale of season 1 of the Alternates universe. We've had the privilege of talking to several guests, and I couldn't think of a better guest to actually do the grand finale with. So thank you so much for gracing our show.
I appreciate it.
Before I start, there is this section which we always talk about, the person behind the professional. Everybody knows the professional who's visible in the public eye, but there's always a human angle to every professional. And as always, we've done a lot of legwork. We've gone into the trenches. We've spoken to a lot of your friends, colleagues, ex-colleagues, and we've collected some feedback about you, which I thought we'll share. If it's okay with you, can I just talk to you about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, while we were talking to our colleagues, while we were talking to the ecosystem which knows you, there were 2 words which kept coming in very, very often. Okay. One was the word patient, and the other one was the word nice. Now, normally this is associated with the medical sector, so don't get too worried. What patient means is you're extremely patient with people and situations. You barely lose your temper, and you normally approach situations with a cool and calm mind. Where the nice point comes in, quote unquote, the nice is everybody has something nice to talk about you, and they actually say you're a very nice person. You connect with people very easily. You connect with teams very easily. In fact, clients just rave about you. So they will always say he's intelligent, he's sharp, he's this, he's that. He's also a nice person. So that's something which kept resonating again and again, which is what I thought was very pertinent to talk
about. Thank you. I'm really glad to hear. Please go ahead.
Talking about teams, I think the general belief is that you believe in empowering people. Okay, once people are aligned to you, you don't micromanage, and I think people love that. People love that about you. You give them their space. You allow them to make mistakes. So I tried probing and finding out whether you're a workaholic, because I've had the privilege of working with you, and I know you work very, very hard. So I was hoping for this adjective to come in, but on a lighter note, somebody says, no, he's not a workaholic, but trust me, everybody around him is. So, okay. You've been widely regarded for your ability to be a quick learner. I think you've handled multiple verticals, you handled multiple businesses, and you've handled multiple teams. And everything, I think, has been, like you often say, a learning experience for you. And you've been a very, very quick learner. On a personal note, you're a foodie and you're a pure vegetarian. You enjoy meals, you're a pure vegetarian, and you enjoy it with friends. In fact, you enjoy the smaller things in life quite a bit. It could be just sharing a gundi pan I'm going to have one after this show. I never known what a gundi pan is.
Okay.
To sharing a good whiskey like Talisker with your friends and family. Your management style, people have told me is literally management by walking around. You go around, meet teams, you put an arm around their
Uh,
shoulders, and you can often be seen taking a walk and talking to people.
right.
You're very, very soft spoken as a person. In fact, some of your erstwhile colleagues who joined you initially in Edelweiss say that initially they couldn't even hear what you were saying. You were so soft, okay, and so nice about things. So that's really something which people appreciate about you. But equally, you're very hard nosed and you're very driven when you think about business opportunities, and that always plays in your mind. You're very, very particular about your time and plan your schedule weeks in advance. So I tried very hard to find out what gets your goat, what irritates you. So after a
Okay.
lot of prodding and prodding and
Uh,
prodding, I finally found that having to repeat yourself gets your goat. So once you understand things, once you download things, once people are aligned, you expect things to get done. But if you have to keep repeating the same thing again and again, but with desired results not coming in, that tends to irritate you a bit. Uh,
that's true.
on
Actually,
a
that's true.
On a
That's true.
personal note, at
Uh,
your family level, your wife Rashmi is a doctor. She's also involved with the business, and you've got two amazing sons, Aditya, who's 20 and who's studying in the US, and Abhiraj, who's in the seventh grade. You're a complete family man, a lot of respect for elders. In fact, you live with your mother and you still get intimidated by her. And that's the sweetest thing I've heard in a long, long time.
okay. So you have really done some very deep research. I hope that's the kind of research you do in Sundaram. I'm sure you're going to do extremely well. These kind of insights very rarely, I think, very few people very few people know about it. So thank you, and
I,
really,
So I
really
just like to
nice to
I
hear
just like
these.
to end up by one more thing, which
Yeah.
I found fascinating and which I think is common to both of us. You're an avid reader. You like reading all genres. You're a movie buff. You love slapstick comedies, and the movie which you love the most, which is what something I really like, is Kill Bill by Quentin Tarantino. I'm a big fan of
That's,
Quentin Tarantino.
that is true. That is true. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Nitin, and welcome to the
Yeah.
show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So while we were publicizing the show, a lot of questions did come in from the audience, which I've tried to blend in with some of the questions we've had.
Right.
But let's say first things first. You've been an extremely successful entrepreneur, and what I would loosely define as an entrepreneur is somebody who's functioned like an entrepreneur in a corporate setup. Owned up to things, got things done.
Right.
As if an entrepreneur would do in his own setup. You've been very successful. You've run multiple verticals. What makes a successful person like that give it all up, flip the switch, and become an entrepreneur? Okay. When do you think it is time and why?
Well, I think it's probably a decision that comes more by instinct than really by a lot of thought process. But I must say that very privileged and blessed to have worked with a firm like Edelweiss for a couple of decades actually, and even there, I never felt genuinely that I was not like really driving the business end to end. And as a 30-year-old who became the CEO of wealth management, I think my journey was really something that I can be very proud of. Like you rightly said, I think on the way I learned so much. But the environment in Edelweiss was very interesting, where the board and the leadership there, including Rashesh and team, I think they really empower you and they give you all the leverage and the leeway to drive the businesses the way you think the business should be run. And it's not a surprise to me that I see a lot of very successful leaders coming out of Edelweiss in that sense, because you got that opportunity to build the business from scratch and you got that independence and all. So awesome journey. And like I think somebody was mentioning earlier, at the end, we were managing around 45 odd billion dollars of assets, which makes us probably one of the largest in the country. But the reality is, I do believe that the next 2 decades in India are going to be the best that India has ever had. I think 10 years out itself, when we look back, we'll be amazed in terms of what the country has become. So I think a couple of my friends and I have been thinking about it, how to play this journey for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And given the fact that we were also in the middle of selling a few companies that I had built in Edelweiss, I did think that a lot of things were coming to a logical end and conclusion that maybe time is right for us to hopefully get started with something on our own. So it was a combination of two things, a very logical end to having built a few businesses, scaled a few businesses, and then sold a few businesses. And on the other hand, real conviction in the long term of India for the next 15, 20 years, and hopefully an opportunity to build something without the legacy and completely afresh, hopefully something faster, better, make a few less mistakes than what I made in my past, and a set of friends that I really can depend on. So I think it was just a series of coincidences that came together at this point. And that's why I said I think it's a little bit of a instinct rather than really a very thoughtful decision. I think it's true. It's very, very individualistic. I think there are kids, my younger one, for example, the older one, my 20-year-old kid, right, that you talked about, Aditya, he's already started on his entrepreneurial journey at age of 20. He's in US and he started a company and he failed one. So he shut down a company, he's again starting and so on. So it's like completely, I guess, how your mind and body tells you when to get started.
Amazing. You make it sound so simple and so seamless, but I can tell you the same India opportunities for everybody, right? It's equal, democratic, egalitarian. But the way you have talked about it, I am actually tempted to dig a little deeper and ask you further.
I thought you
How
were going
does
to
it?
say I'm tempted to resign and start something on my own. I'm so
Honestly,
sorry, Dave.
I will tell you that that thought has always crossed my mind because everybody sees the India
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
But like you rightly mentioned, it's depending a lot on the individual. I still am comfortable with being an entrepreneur.
Right.
And actually, that's my next question. How does working as an entrepreneur prepare an individual for the challenges and transition and opportunities he might face as an entrepreneur? You know, and
Right.
what are the transferable skills that will help him move from one role to the other?
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting question. And I think uh, actually a lot of skills, I would say, maybe 80-85% of the skills are very similar as an entrepreneur or as an entrepreneur, whether you're working for a large corporate, but you're running your own P&L versus when you're getting started. So I think whether it's team management, whether it's thinking strategy, whether it is managing risk, etc. I think all these skills are very, very transferable. And sometimes I feel actually running a large firm within a larger brand is actually more complex than running our own business because the number of stakeholders actually dramatically go up in large companies, especially if you're a listed company. So I think I have a lot of respect for people who are CEOs of large institutions. Okay, it might not look like an entrepreneurial role, but I think the complexities are as much, if not more. Whereas when I think about what I have experienced in the last 2 years as an entrepreneur, I think a lot of those capabilities and skills that I had learned over 20 years came in very, very handy. So, in fact, in a strange way, I do think some level of experience of running a business within a large setup comes in very handy when you're starting. Though I must also say there are few things that are very different as an entrepreneur. So, for example, I think a lot of mundane things that otherwise you will never worry about. So for example, when you're a CEO in Sundaram, probably you will not even know how many licenses you have. Okay. But I must tell you, we took 37 licenses. 37 licenses to get started. We started the company on October 7th. We were functional on 5th May. We are still in the process of getting a few licenses, but I never knew that we have 37 licenses. Wow.
Also,
Office management, for example. Okay. Now I'm worried about, okay, where are we going to find offices? If the AC goes down, what happens? What happens in the night? What happens to the security? What happens to convenience of people when they're coming late, early in the morning, etc., etc., etc. What about payroll processing? You've hired people. What are the kind of contracts that are being signed with employees? These are very basic things, and maybe they're so fresh in my memory because in the first few days I was really grappling with some of these issues, and slightly overwhelmed in the beginning. But one good thing I must say, Vikaas, about India, okay, and this is something that I've learned in the last 2 years. Any problem that you have in the corporate setup, okay, there are specialized people who are willing to come and take it over from you if you're willing to pay them a reasonable price. So what I learned, I don't need to do any of this. Actually, you can just outsource each of these activities to different, and they just pop up. You don't even have to go. You'll receive a call and say, by the way, I'm this. You know that you will be struggling with payroll processing. Can I come and help you? Okay, they are so and so. You must be struggling with attendance management. We can come and sort this out for you. You must be struggling with your CFO function. You might be struggling with your secretarial. And a lot of these people are actually very sophisticated, very good people. And in India, most of these services are very cheap. So actually, the one thing that I would say, if you're starting off, be very comfortable in outsourcing some of these, what I would say, non-core capabilities, and focus on more the business, and which is what I think I was able to do. And the second thing I think, which worked slightly, if I can say better for me, was that a lot of my colleagues, senior colleagues, and not necessarily in my previous organization, but people who had worked with me anytime in the last 20, 25 years came together. So as 𝐒𝐞𝐫, we have 5 co-founders and maybe another 4 or 5 people who might not be called co-founders, but are practically like co-founders. So these 9, 10 people that we have, which is the executive committee of the firm, they're all people who have known each other at least for 10 years, if not more.
Amazing.
And they all bring some very unique, different complementary capabilities, which has allowed us to parcel out some of those initial teething issues and challenges. And these are people who just get things done. So, yeah, I think sometimes I feel when you're starting off, you might be a little anxious and overwhelmed by the complexity. But as you progress into the journey, I do think it keeps on becoming a little easier.
That's amazing. I'm sure a lot of people who will be listening into this show and want to become an entrepreneur. 2 things I picked up. One, it's okay to start up and fail, like what your son has done. And that's the perfect age to actually start up and gain some experience like that. Amazing. And the other is that just start off. There will be people who will come in. India is an amazing country.
Absolutely.
Who will just pick up the non-core functions and just make life smoother for you.
And the third, I would say, if you can, start off with some good friends. Sometimes it can be lonely, when you're building a business. Correct. And it's just good to have a couple of very, very good friends who understand you. When you are down, they are up and they can, pull you up. When they are feeling a little challenged, you can. I think there is serious merit in having at least 2 or 3 co-founders to begin with who get along, not capabilities only. I think it's very critical for you to have the right chemistry with those people.
Amazing. Brilliant. I'm sure Deb would have some more questions to ask you as we go along. Deb, over to you.
Thanks, Vikaas. Hi, Nitin. Pleasure to be with you on the show.
Hi, Dave. Thank you.
Very engrossing insights that you have shared with us. Many more questions coming to my mind, but let me start by saying this, that I think 𝐒𝐞𝐫 is becoming a slow and steady marquee name in the wealth advisory business. And we're very proud to see that one of our own colleagues and professionals from the industry is building a brand in a different model, which I've never seen before.
Thank you. So kind of you. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that you put a team together very soon and very quick. And the team that I've met with and interacted with are the who's who and the best professionals that I have interacted in the past in the industry. Please tell me or tell the audience, how did you manage to put together such a very good team together in such a short span of time and build that business in the scale and the speed at which you're
doing? No, thank you, Dave, for such kind words to begin with. I think partially I would say that I've been a little lucky. Timing was very good. And I think in a lot of things, you struggle to sometimes attribute success to capability and sometimes just to the circumstances in these situations. But there are 2, 3 things which I feel are critical when you're trying to build a team. And one, I think, at least in financial services, I do feel that competence is very, very critical, but so is character. And in the 20 odd years of having worked in reasonably front end roles, which meant that I ended up meeting a lot of people in the industry, and also as a CEO, a privilege and a chance to manage some of the best in the industry at some point. Those guys might have been with me and they left, and then so I think one just sheerly knowing who is who in the industry really helped me shortlist and finalize who are the people that I really wanted at different places. But I think the second more important, Dave, if I can be honest, proposition for employees is the purpose. If you really want to hire somebody like a Hemant Daga or a Varun Bajpayee or a Puneet Jain or a Shrikant or a Bismillah, any of Devina and tons of people that we've been lucky to have hired, I don't think only compensation and a career, because they're anyways doing so well in their existing roles, right? So why should they leave that and come to work with Neo? And the primary motive that I have seen, and it's a slightly unsaid motive, is people really want to have a purpose in life. Okay, and especially once you have crossed 35, 40 and you've done reasonably okay in your financial or have built reasonable finances on your personal side, all of us crave for a purpose. And if you suddenly find a firm which is a very, which has a purpose that you can relate to, let me put it this way, yeah, I think it excites you. It is a differentiation versus just going to a firm and doing a set of things to make profits. And I came to this conclusion a long time back that at least there are a lot of competent people who are not purely driven by economics. They want to make a difference in lives of people. They want to leave a legacy. They want to be remembered as somebody who made a difference, right? And that is a huge arbitrage, I think, in today's world where everybody is just chasing material outcomes. You will be surprised to see so many successful, competent, and brilliant people are really seeking purpose. And so when we started Neo, one of the things was, what do we really stand for? Why should Neo exist in the first place? I mean, there's so many financial services company. What difference does it make that if there's another new company gets started? So I think our purpose, if you have to be specific, is we actually want to solve large problems in financial services, areas that other people are not getting in because they're difficult or because the current industry dynamics doesn't allow. Areas that are complex, difficult, where people are not getting in, but if solved, will make a transformational difference in lives of people. We want to be in those areas. Now, just imagine, I mean, this is a huge problem to solve, right? I'm saying we want to do things that others are not doing, not because they can't do, but because of situations. So now suddenly there is something very new. And a lot of conversations actually ended up being around with these people. What is your problem set? And why do you want to solve it? And if you solve it, what difference will it make to this country? What difference will it make to those people that we are dealing with? What difference will it make to the employees? So I think that was something that I think made a big difference in hiring some of these very people have left McKinsey, Goldman, SSG, Macquarie, Deutsche, Credit Suisse, UBS, and come to our platform. They won't come just for a comp hike or some ESOPs and all. I think that is not a. And the third point that I think is equally critical is a sense of fairness. I think if senior people feel that I'll be treated fairly and I'll be given enough responsibility and I will have enough freedom to express myself in the business, I think that makes it a little easier. So I'm happy to share that we have actually hired around 700 people in the last 2.5 years. And of which, if I'm not mistaken, around 650 are without any consultant. So all of these people, either we have known or they have called up and said, Nitin, is there something that we can do together? And we've been obviously if we found the right fit and the role, we onboarded them.
Interesting, Nitin. As I travel across the country and meet your team members, I'm very intrigued by the business model that you're developing, which is, I think, the first of its kind in the country that is being done in large scale that you're doing, right? Second interesting point that I noticed also, you have more techies in your team than financial service guys. Is that correct?
That is true.
So I think that's a very interesting piece. I'm so keenly observing your organization that the model is very different and the outlook is also very, very modern. And therefore, the name Neo actually fits in very well with your objective that you're trying to, do right now. So, having said that, from being a CEO to being a promoter, uh, how's your mindset or approach to compliance, risk, people, etc., administration has changed? I mean, what is that switch that you've taken from being a CEO of an organization to being a promoter of a business?
Okay, this is an interesting one. Actually, I think at my heart, I'm a professional. I must say, Dave, I still feel like a CEO of the firm. Though currently, by the way, I'm not even the CEO. The CEO of the Hemant, Varun, Shrikant, they are the CEOs of different businesses. I think having 20, 25 years of conditioning as a professional, I don't think I can change myself fundamentally. And as far as the compliance and the risk management is concerned, there's one thing that has changed probably. One, you have to be as careful and more as you were in a company. But now the buck squarely stops at your doorstep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have no level of cushioning behind. There's no chairman, there's no board, nothing. I mean, you are the promoter, you are accountable. And hence the way you think about the world, I think has changed a little bit. And I think I do end up spending slightly more, maybe 20, 25% more time in compliance and risk management than what I would have spent in my professional journey. And as far as managing people is concerned, I think that has not changed much, frankly. I come to office at 8:30 in the morning. I leave at around 6:37 in the evening. I end up walking a lot throughout the day. I end up, I do like to talk to people and figure what's happening in their lives, what are they focused on, and how are they progressing. And you know what it does? It sometimes helps me to triangulate. Basically, when I talk to the sales team, when I talk to the product team, when I talk to the operations team, when I talk to the tech team, you pick up some pieces of information which might not come through you through more formal channels. And then it allows you to build some hypothesis on where the firm is going. And if it's not going in the right direction, you get early signals to direct it properly. So I think that's what, if at all, there is any difference in the...
Absolutely. Like you said before, that you worry about the security, you worry about if the power is coming, if the employees are coming on time and safely to office. I think that's how the promoters start thinking, I guess, as a owner of the business. Over to you, Vikaas.
Thanks, Dave. I was listening very intently to Nitin, and one of the terms, Nitin, I think we've encountered in Edelweiss was the word bifocal.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. So it just resonated again and again and again when you were talking about how, as a promoter, as a CEO, your thinking process. Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, you mentioned something about solving large problems. That was something you mentioned. When you established Neo, which were the large problems you were looking at sorting out? If you could share some insights. And was the origination of some of these verticals basis the problems which you saw? Or you created the verticals and then saw the problems? How did the whole journey happen?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, because it's always a combination of these two things. Because as you are doing things, but I must say, when we got started, it appears very clean today. When I think about our business lines and all, it just looks very logically organized, and I think sometimes very thoughtful, etc. And I've got the feedback from a lot of people. But when we were starting off, actually, there was no structure in it. I think there were 3 or 4 key problems that we were looking to solve. One, I think as an industry participant, as somebody who has worked with me, we have both talked about it a lot. I think there seems to be a lot of conflict today in the financial services business. And I think these are because of legacy reasons. And after you've built a firm of a certain size and scale, I do think it's very difficult to change the organization and solve some of these things. And some of these are also challenges given the opportunity set, etc. So I think we felt that particularly in advisory and wealth management, there is a space for somebody to build a very transparent, very unbiased, and cost-efficient advisory platform. And we have taken a lot of effort to think through this, how to build a conflict-free platform. And it does not mean that there would be zero conflicts, but we have tried to ensure that people are incentivized correctly. For example, in our multifamily office structures, we do not have targets for our relationship managers. There's no revenue target, and that I think is unheard of in the wealth management industry. We do not even incentivize them on revenue. I personally don't even want them to know what revenue they have made. Okay. The only way I want to judge them is at the end of the year, what clients are saying about them. So we do a proper NPS at the end of the day with the clients that we are dealing with. And if they say good things about you over a period of time, we would ensure that you grow financially as well as from a role and responsibility perspective within the firm. We have only 7 or 8 people on the front end in the advisory. We have around 35 to 40 people on the product side.
Okay.
Now, can you imagine?
Huge.
Yeah,
Inverted ratio.
Absolutely inverted. Because I do think for these families who are 1,000 crore plus, sales is not going to cut it. They really need some sophisticated advisory and solutions, right? So they want to talk to people like Hemant and Puneet and Abhishek and Sandeep and Bismillah and 𝐒𝐤𝐞𝐫 and Shraddha and Prateek and Saloni. And I mean, I'm saying the head of fixed income, head of credit, head of special situations, head of offshore, head of taxation. So that, but these are each families which can give you 1,000 crore plus AUM. So it's totally worth it to build a platform that services them. And because of our proposition, which is so deep, the institution manages the client actually, along with the relationship. So relationship is part of the overall franchise and we service the clients together. So that is one problem statement to solve the conflict that I think we have been reasonably successful. The second, within the same construct has been, and again, some of you guys have known this very, very well, this industry is really short on talent. The private banking industry is very short on talent. And there are some 1,000 RMs in the non-banking space in the country who are senior RMs are managing maybe 100 crore plus kind of books. Even within that 1,000, there are not more than maybe 200 RMs who I think can manage 100 crore plus clients and have the experience of 10 years, 15 years, and a really high quality from an advisory perspective. And a lot of them actually started their careers when I started my career in 2008, 9, 10. So that in that period in the wealth management space, because the industry was very nascent at that time, right? So actually there are no people, really hardly a few people who were doing wealth management in 90s or early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
It's a relatively young industry. Something very interesting has happened. A lot of these senior professionals, senior private bankers are feeling a little, what is the right word? I don't know, uncomfortable or are uneasy about the way things are evolving in the industry. Why? Because one, they are adding tremendous value to the franchise and the client. But they're compared to all these people who don't have the same level of experience and expertise, and the compensation structures are actually inverted. I'll tell you something which is very, very interesting. Huh? If you are an unsuccessful relationship manager, you are actually paid as a percentage of your revenue much higher than if you are a successful relationship manager in the industry. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, of course.
Right? Because let's say
If you
Because
can explain that, that's interesting.
I think maybe it's worth talking a little bit more about it. Let's say because you and I are relationship managers and we both have years of experience, and I am, like you said, I'm not a workaholic and you are a workaholic. Okay. मैं मेरी भी सैलरी लेट्स से एक बार के लिए मान लेते हैं 50 लाख है, आपकी भी सैलरी 50 लाख है ना? हम दोनों की सैलरी बराबर मिल गई, लोगों को देख के लगा कि दोनों बराबर के काबिल है. And then what happens is you do 10 crores of revenue. Okay. And I do 1 crore of revenue. Okay. Now what happens in the industry at a practical level, I'm still profitable, right? Because I have made 50 lakhs more than my compensation.
Correct.
You are very profitable. So the industry will actually pay you something like maybe 1.5 crores total. So 10% extra. So you'll get a 1 crore bonus. I should not get any bonus, but I will go and fight with my boss कि अगर आपने मुझे bonus नहीं दिया तो मैं तो जा रहा हूँ. So I might end up getting something like 10, 15, 20 lakhs of bonus. Okay, now
Which
think
is
about
very
it.
close. Yeah.
So I make 75 lakhs. You made 1.5 crore. So you are 2x of me in terms of compensation. But you are 10x of me in terms of revenue. Just imagine, 10x.
Wow, that's nice.
Right?
I understand.
Now I'm saying you are practically subsidizing people like me, right? So you are feeling uncomfortable. Why does this make sense? And the second is, I think your bosses are controlling you. They tell you in this quarter, okay, why don't you go and sell this fund? If you don't sell this, then there will be a board where you will write, yes, RM सबसे ज़्यादा successful है ये, and you're just made to feel bad sometimes, about sales and all. I think these are the issues that at least some of the RMs that we were talking to came with. And we said, how can we solve this? For the most successful RM. So we said, see, this is not practical for every RM. Okay. What our proposition is not correct for most RMs actually. It is only true for the most successful relationship managers in the country to say, I want to build my own practice. But Nitin, can you provide me the entire platform, which means products, capabilities, technology, infrastructure, marketing, brand, and you guys? I mean, all of us are available to you. So if you want to work with a large relationship, if you get started, it's difficult to do it on your own. But let's say Hemant goes with you, a Varun goes with you, or a Shrikant goes with you, or a Puneet goes with you, or any of these people. It just makes it a more solid proposition in front of the client, and the client is also dealing with the institution. So he has the trust and the comfort of dealing with the institution. At the same time, you are getting a very large 2/3 of the economics that you would have otherwise got in the firm. Okay. And you don't have to manage infrastructure. You don't have to worry about that AC, whether it's working or not, whether the office is functional or not.
Beautiful.
You don't have to worry about, the service infrastructure, operations, technology. I mean, think about it. So for these successful people who know that they can actually manage and build this business on their own, we are just facilitating them. Like you said sometime in the beginning, I do enjoy empowering and working with people and seeing them successful. So the whole idea is, can we really make a difference in lives of these very, very successful people who are feeling slightly uncomfortable or whatever? And I think that this model solves for that. And the third problem that we solved was on the income side. So this is again a very tangential thought on asset management. In India, because everybody is offering or thinks about investment as a growth opportunity. So what it means is, I've got 5 crores and I want it to become, let's say, 50 crores in the next 15 years, 20 years, or whatever you think. Yeah. So that is like growth of capital. But the assumption here is you don't need this money for 10, 15, 20 years.
Correct.
Right? But what if you reverse the problem and you say, I already have made 50 crores, Nitin. Okay. I'm 45, 50. And now, I also want to have a good life. Can you solve for a problem statement that because I have earned 50 crores, I want to get 50 lakhs every month? It's like financial freedom. It's like, I just want to be able to do what I want to do. I'm done with and I don't even want to focus on managing this money. So now generally speaking, what I've seen, people have two different buckets. So everybody has a wealth creation bucket and an income bucket. We are trying to solve for the income bucket. The problem with the income bucket today in the industry is that most of the yields are very low, which means 7%, 8%. Then, the kind of capital that you need for successful second income is massive. So we are trying to push the boundaries on the income side in terms of IRRs from 12 to 20%, depending on what kind of products we come across with. But we are trying to push the boundary by putting in more effort, actually less than risk. We see the alpha coming for two reasons. One is because of the risk that you're taking. But the second, I think more importantly, by the effort that you're making. So we actually like to create alpha because of the effort that we put in. So that I think is driving our alternate asset management strategy, where we are already now managing around 5,000 crore of assets. So these are the three big problem sets that we wanted to solve in the beginning.
Nitin, just listening to you made me realize that it's already 40 minutes into the show. Okay.
Oh, really?
So we sooner than later will have to go to audience questions, but I can't but resist asking you one question before I move on to audience questions. Is that so? First of all, I've been taking notes while you've been talking. That's why you've been seeing me look here and there. Some of the points I've written, for example, institution manages the client. Very profound. I quite like that. The revenue versus incentive conundrum. You just spun my head in circles. Now I'm also starting to think that. Right? It's amazing. Uh, I'm trying to now coin a term between entrepreneur and intrapreneur because you created a band of people who's trying to do best of both worlds, and I really don't have that name. I think that's what you've done.
Yeah, that is a very interesting proposition.
Yeah, and of course the income bucket part. But if I can just ask you a question about you've been around, you've been there, done that, seen everything, right? And like you said, India has a lot of opportunity going ahead. I just want to reflect on the past. In the last 10, 15 years that you've seen this entire financial landscape change. What are the three key things that you think have led to this change? Uh, why I'm asking you this question is while we talk about the future and we've talked about your experience in terms of how you're looking at the future, if somebody were to travel back in time and say, if I would have done that, if I would have seen these signs, and maybe if these signs keep coming in because history keeps repeating itself, right? I would probably jump into be an entrepreneur sooner than later. So, what are the three key things which you've seen in the past which have changed the landscape of this entire financial services world?
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting one. So, I've been in the industry for last 23, 24 years, and there have been some very steep inflection points, which at that time might or might not have looked dramatic. But over a period of time, I think it's only in hindsight that one thinks and you can relate that the impact was so profound. And some of us probably got it at that time, and some of us were skeptical, and some of us were confused, and so on and so forth. But at least I will share with you 3-4 things that immediately come to my mind. So I think, strangely enough, I think, or maybe let me start with the basic one. Okay, this is actually something that we should have caught very easily, which was the rising affluence of the society. We were witnessing it day in, day out, right? We would go and buy a 5 rupee ticket for a movie to buying a 2,000 rupee ticket in PVR today. And this was a journey, right? And the signs are all there. People were saying that we are just not interested in watching the movie, but the experience, right?
Experience part. Yeah.
And we always kept on talking that India is a poor country and they are only interested in value for money, and they will not pay for the premium services. But I do think this is a 20, 30-year trend, even from here. So you are seeing more SUVs being sold than Alto. You are seeing people paying top dollars for luxury properties, luxury experiences. Okay, there are companies like Ethos which are selling these expensive watches. They're getting a lot of traction in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Now, I think this is when India has 9.5 lakh people who have more than 10 crore of net worth. And my assessment, and this is not data that any research has published, this is our internal research, internal work that we have done. And we are very confident of this data. It will surprise everyone. In 2035, we think there will be 1 crore people who will have more than 10 crore rupees in terms of their net worth. 10 crore people. And just to put that in perspective, yes, China has less than that. China has 65 lakhs such people today. Okay, so this means a dramatic change in terms of how to imagine the new client and build a proposition and what that means for wealth management and what that means for asset management, right? So I think that's one of the more obvious things that I saw. The second, I think, which was very interesting, and I could have probably not guessed it as much, but I felt it and hence hopefully adjusted to it, was the demon bit. And maybe we can largely bucket some of these things as government reforms, but demon was strangely enough, and there were a lot of questions whether it was good, bad. I am not in that debate. I'm just saying from a pure financial services perspective, it was a boon for the industry. Because what happened is the money that was lying in the pillows of housewives actually came into the banks and through banks to mutual funds and through mutual funds to people like us, etc. Right? It was a very, very big move from a financial services perspective. And the related one, I would say, is the digital stack that India has built. Unbelievable. I think what has happened is I would have never imagined in my life. You saw it coming, right? We saw it coming.
Yes.
When Paytm happened, when UPI happened, and all of these things, we felt it. But that was, very few people actually played the game. A lot of people thought maybe this is just an experiment. We'll see how it play out. There were few people who really capitalized on it. Third, which was the most unfortunate one, but it had a very interesting impact on the capital markets, was COVID. I don't know whether I'm sure a lot of you would know the data, but let me share with you that before COVID, we were opening around 2 lakh Demat accounts every month. And that number was growing at 10%, 12%, 13% year on year.
Correct.
And we felt that it was still a very good number, 2 lakh Demat accounts. Now we have opened 35 to 40 lakh Demat accounts a month. 20x in 3 to 4 years. Right? And I do think something happened in COVID. I think people had a little more savings in their account, who were more fortunate, and a lot more time on their hand. And people probably saw the value of investing in markets. And this was, by the way, not even an India phenomenon. This was a global phenomenon. The number of people who came from banks to capital markets went up dramatically. And that's how Zerodha got created or really took off. And a lot of the other great companies like Grow and all have come about because of that big wave. And again, I would say a lot of people continue to be skeptical, but this is like a one-off thing. So these things, I think, might be more structural and surprise you in the long term. So these are the 3-4 things at least I can think of.
No, I think this is very interesting. On a lighter note, I think when you talk about people being skeptical, I was just talking to a very large client the other day, and he was saying that the lows of COVID will now be breached on the downside. So he's still holding on to cash. So I think that's what makes life so interesting. You have all points of view. So Nitin, I'm going to very quickly jump into the questions. There are questions are rolling in and some insights. Samir talks about the fact that Nitin, great insight so far. What's your thought on diluting equity for capital? Sometimes I think I should not dilute because I have mindset to hold 100% equity of my company. Sometimes I think I should dilute a few. Business is good. I'm sure I can scale it up if I have capital, but mindset. In a nutshell, what he's saying is, when is the right time to dilute?
Yeah. I think in financial services, you have to be clear about what you're trying to achieve. So, for example, if you're really looking to build a large institution, capital is critical. You cannot do without capital. I think we already manage around 30,000 crore of client assets. Now, clients are not going to put money with us if they don't see us as a stable long-term institution. We are already around 700 crore of equity. I think by the end of next 6 months, maybe I do think we'll go to around 1,000 crore of equity as a combination of accrual and some capital infusion. It's critical. And hence, it's not, actually where we come from, where all of us come from, is we are actually thinking about how to build a more successful Neo, then how to really make more money for ourselves by Neo. Because our ambition is a 30-year ambition to build one of the most respected and dominant financial services institution in this country. For that, whatever it takes, if that means that we are getting diluted a little early, it's fair game. But let's say if you were building a more niche boutique outfit, in which case then I would say try to delay it as much as possible, because at the end of the day, you will need more and more money, and that leaves a lot of cushion for you to raise capital in the future. But one thing that I would say, which is something that I do think a lot of entrepreneurs might benefit from, do not raise money from anyone. Raise money from people who share your vision, who are completely aligned with you. If you end up raising capital from people who are not bought into your vision, I think they always tend to have some level of conflicts with the management, and over a period of time, it becomes a slightly complex relationship, if I can say. So when you're raising capital, valuation is important, but I do think more important is who are you raising money from, and I cannot overemphasize this fact, and a lot of people seriously underappreciate this decision.
Such a beautiful thing, because it just resonates with some time ago when you talked about having friends around.
Right.
So people who give you capital, if they're more like friends rather than anything else, it just makes life a little easier, right?
And
I
they
think
have to buy your vision.
absolutely.
I mean, for
And they have
example,
to
what
buy
we
your
want
vision.
to do, it means that we have to sacrifice some of the short-term profits. If you're constantly judging me on short-term profitability, we might start to question each other's agenda. So I think you need to understand what we are doing, and you need to genuinely believe that this is the right strategy, and hence we should invest.
Nitin, there are tons of questions. I'm going to pick and choose one or two of them. I'm mindful of the fact that you also have a schedule. Two questions which immediately come to my mind, or rather I'm seeing here. Are there any common misconceptions? There's a person called JS who's asking, are there any common misconceptions about entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship that you'd like to address?
I would say a lot of people believe that entrepreneurship is much tougher than entrepreneurship.
Okay.
I think both statements have some bias. I think being a CEO, being an entrepreneur in companies is very tough. Okay, and we underestimate the complexities of that because you manage many stakeholders. And as an entrepreneur, of course, you have a new set of complexities, but there is one thing you do, especially in the beginning, drive a lot of decisions. You're not really, you don't have any bureaucratic hurdles to achieve what you really want to achieve. So that I think is a good thing. So that's, yeah. The second is, I think a lot of people feel that you can't make a lot of money being an entrepreneur. That is not true any longer in India. I think by the way, people end up making tons of money. And by the way, the best examples are, and I don't want to say it from a money perspective, but also legacy and also brand, etc. See, firms like HDFCs and ICICI banks and a lot of these institutions, Avas. So you see how well the CEOs have done. It is unbelievable. Some of those CEOs are upwards of $100 million of net worth. So the other thing is that it is quite enriching, both in terms of learning experience as well as economics, even if for a successful entrepreneur.
Interesting. So I've got a lot of people commenting. I'll just read some of the comments before I go to the last question. Prasad Agashe talks about the fact that how many years, months did you take from the thought of being an entrepreneur to opening day of your company? I think you've already addressed that. Padmanabh Shanoy is complimenting on the interaction. If I can just scroll down. You have Mahendra Prajapati who's complimenting again, lots of learnings, and generally is asking what's your view on current default crorepati due to land acquisition by government for bullet train, DMRC, DFIC. This is not the question I wanted to ask. And they're not aligning with financial investments. I think we can probably skip this. This is not the ethos of this show at this point of time. Okay, so that takes me. Okay, Dheeraj Rajpal is talking about. Can you throw some light on performing credit AIF in Indian landscape and the funds launched by Neo? Nitin, if you would want to talk about that before I go to the last question, and I promise that's going to be the last question.
Yes, sure, no problem. Actually, we have a interesting fund called Edelweiss Special Credit Opportunities Fund. I think there are some terminologies that are being used right now, and people will get familiar over a period of time. So I think the way to think about private credit is core credit in the range of where you are, let's say, in the range of 12 to 13%. Then performing credit, which is in the range of 15 to 17%. And then there is special credit opportunity, which is in the range of special situations. Sometimes people say, special credit, which is in the range of 18 to 22%. So these are the three buckets that you should hear. You will end up hearing these names: core credit, performing credit, and then special credit opportunities or special situations. We have already raised around close to 2,000 crores in our special credit opportunities fund. I think it's one of the best in the country. The team is the one which has managed some of the largest assets in this category in the country, whether it's Puneet, Hemant, myself, Varun. All of us have been part of this industry from 2008, 9, and Varun was there in 2005 itself. So one of the most experienced teams in the country, and we've been surprised by the kind of response that we've got. The two propositions that we have for our fund is they are in all our schemes, and Vikaas, you will remember this conversation we have had at a lot of time. We'll build some of the finest funds in the country, but we'll price it very efficiently, right? So if you see most of our funds, they will be typically median minus in terms of fee structures, very high on transparency, and very, very customer oriented. Most of the money that we have raised is from domestic investors, and that's doing very well. In the next couple of months, we should be launching our our performing credit opportunity. It is managed by somebody who I really, really respect a lot, Ashutosh Oja. He's one of the guys who started his career with me in 2004, 5, 6, I think. Brilliant guy. And we are going to shoot for something like 15 to 16% handle in this fund gross. And the whole idea is that the interesting difference from other people will be that our deployment will be very quick. So you don't have to have any. So one of the feedback that we've got, because in a lot of alternate funds, is this drawdown business bothers us, that you take money and then you make us put the money in liquid places, and where we have to suddenly again pull out money and give it to you and all. So in this fund, we are trying to solve for that, so that you don't really have to. In 2 tranches, we'll take all the money and we'll deploy. And the short duration fund, 3-year fund. So that's the second fund that we are going to launch.
No, it's muscle memory, but I think you mentioned Edelweiss instead of Neo.
So sorry.
I'm so sorry. I do that quite a few times, just to clarify. This is a Neo
fund. But I do think it is it's something that I've done for 20 years, and
yeah, that's why I said muscle
love and affection.
Absolutely.
For the firm, so it happens to me sometimes. Yeah, sorry.
So last question, not a problem. Last question, Nitin, is will the journey to become an entrepreneur by a woman be different? This is the last question. I love this question.
I couldn't get it.
I'll repeat again. Will the journey to becoming an entrepreneur by a woman be different? Is anything different to be done, considering there could be dual responsibilities both on the domestic and on the professional front? I thought this was a question which came straight from the heart. What are your views on that?
I think upfront, it is damn tough to be a woman and do both these things. And I've seen this from very close quarters. So I actually salute the women who are able to pull off. But I think the flip side of this is, by the way, I really think in financial services, there are some unique advantages of being a woman. For example, I really think that, at least my experience, so I don't want to be controversial here, but my experience has been some of the women leaders that I have worked with are more emotional and mature, both at the same time, which means that you can connect with the crowd, which means you connect with the audience, you can connect with clients and connect with your people far better than I think what a lot. And these are averages, so please don't make a. I really don't want to make a generalization here, but my experience has been that I found women leaders actually being able to connect with their teams, their seniors, the board members, the the clients slightly better than what the male counterparts on an average will, which is I think a huge edge in this industry. The second, I think knowing some of the most wonderful women around me, I think they are better time managers because they don't have they have to manage so many things and they're juggling so many things in the air. And at last, I would say, I think we are all cheering for you. If you're a woman and you want to be an entrepreneur, I think there are tons of people like us, Vikaas, and all of us who really want to see you successful. And we're all here to support you in whichever way we can. We actually run a program called Athena. It's an interesting program where we are actually developing women leaders. One of the commitments that I have made to the firm is that in the next 10 years, we will produce at least 5 CEOs from NEO. Whether they are part of NEO, they are part of firms outside of NEO, I would not know. But we want them to be ready to become a CEO in 5 to 10 years. By the way, just remember, 2 years back, this program started when we didn't have any business. Okay, so it's a it's something again. It goes back to purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely, it goes back to purpose. And I think, Nitin, there's a prize for the best question. So I guess this question wins the prize hands down.
I think so. I think so.
Amazing. Nitin, it's been an amazing discussion. Really enjoyed this. I think I speak for myself, my team members, all of us. I've been riveted from start to finish. I made notes. I think this is one of the more insightful discussions which people have, and I would urge everybody later on when the YouTube video gets released to just not take it as one slice of life is moving from an intrapreneur to an entrepreneur. There are so many insights you can get from a discussion like this, from a vantage point which Nitin occupies. It could be purpose, it could be women entrepreneurs, it could be starting and failing, it could be a lot of other things. So thank you so much, Nitin. I quite enjoyed myself, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank you so much, Nitin. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to converse with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, all of you.